today I'm actually going to be going over what it takes to create your own TTRPG. Now I'm going to go over some basic stuff in this first part and get to the meatier parts later on in the series. So if you enjoy this content, please go sub and like slash, comment. Now with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. So step number one, and probably the most important step, is what do you want out of your TTRPG exactly? Now, a lot of you are probably saying, what the actual fuck do you mean by that, Joey? Are you trying to speak in riddles, you asshat? And obviously, yes, of course I am. But no, actually, what I mean is like the theme of your game needs to be pretty apparent. And as somebody like myself who primarily writes a bunch of systems, as you can see here, I'm notorious for writing things down and then just never picking them up again. And that being said, this is easy to run into your first problem. And that problem is I have an idea, but I'm not really sure what to do with it. And well, this does come with a lot of thinking involved, especially for the long road ahead when it comes to the creation process. It's the same with any skill, kind of like drawing, for instance. It takes a lot of practice and effort to get it right. And to be honest with you, I didn't completely, or hell, I didn't even finish my first child, Reemergence, my sci-fi TTRPG with Antonio, um, for 4 years. And it's a long time, I know, and a lot of that time stuff really scares people off. But at the end, we did end up selling it and did a Kickstarter that ended up making some money. And so, what can I say? I overcame that first obstacle by saying pretty much, I really want a cool sci-fi TTRPG made by myself, prioritizing fast-paced combat because I really hate waiting 30 plus minutes for the wizard to pick a spell every turn. Meanwhile, my rogue ass is hidden, and then I'm like, okay, I shoot, and that's my turn. All right, next turn, guys. It's just annoying and really wasn't my cup of tea. So I really wanted to switch into something more sci-fi and fun, and I wanted a fast-paced combat. And so, particularly, that was my premise, and that was pretty much all I really had. Cool sci-fi TTRPG, fast-paced combat. I really didn't have any idea how to accomplish this or even where to start. So I'm hoping here today and more in the future, I can share some tricks and tips that I use that could save you guys some time and hopefully help you out as best as I can because I'm a 25-year-old nerd and I've been playing for far too long. And so now I'm just kind of hoping to give you guys some of my valuable knowledge. But what did I do when it came to starting to make my system? Honestly, I started really small. I built the idea more and more over time, and a lot of it was spending nights and time I did have available to write out ideas on paper. And of course, I use Google Docs because my writing's absolute dog shit. But besides that, I wrote down some points here that I think some of you might find helpful in this process at the beginning with part one, kind of, what do you want out of your TTRPG? So number one was ask questions that you think someone would want to know, even if it's just stupid ass questions like, can I talk to NPCs and other players? Like these dumb and simple questions end up being the most important when you're really trying to get into something, especially when it comes out of your TTRPG, because freedom is everything, but rules are what holds freedom together. Kind of like a mom with like those kid leashes. Without rules, the freedom becomes rampant and impossible to control. So ask as many dumb questions, and of course, as they say, there are no dumb questions. So I use that especially when making systems from the first get go because it helps you with your theming and it helps you bring out like what do you really want to be different or what do you want to make the same? What do you want to make with different kinds of, these little questions can just help you out with so much, especially in the early game here because you're really just messing around with ideas. There's nothing concrete. You haven't really formed anything too insane, and this also comes into queue here because some of the questions I ask myself every time I make a system, it's like, what dice do I want to use? Do I want to use all my dice? Do I want to make it a certain type of game? Like, and just to name a few, like there's D20 games, There's D6 base games, there's D10, D12. I haven't heard of a D8, so if you want to be really unique and do D8s, by all means do that, or D4s. I've done so many of those myself. Like I play with a lot of D6 and D20 games myself. Kind of my favorites, just out of the few dice. And of course, there's D100s as well, in case you really want to go like percentile based or kind of down the route of Warhammer. But those are just some examples of the things that you guys can ask yourselves, including like, these dumb questions that I say, or simple like, can you talk to NPCs? What does life look like? Is there magic? Is there not? Is there guns? What time period? What place does this take place in? What time does it take place in? Who is it for? Is it for kids? Is it for teens? Is it for early adults? Or old folks like my boy Antonio. But, like I said, it's little dumb, stupid questions like that you just ask yourself over time. Don't rush it. Just as you're building out your system, ask yourself these questions, jot down these questions. And if you guys have seen any of my day 1 through 6 on creating a TTRPG, we write out a lot of questions, and those questions we answer pretty much just as easily because we want to make sure everything makes sense and everything that's going to be thrown at you is going to be thrown at you, because you're going to have questions and people are going to ask the dumbest shit that you would say, oh, that's not, no, nobody would ask that. Of course they will. And we say that, but we also put that upon ourselves, saying like, like we're just as dumb here because like, okay, I didn't think of that. It can be as dumb as we haven't thought about like, how does firing a weapon work? And you find out the hard way pretty quick. But that's number one, and I think that's really important for the beginning steps. But number two coincides with it really well. Be sure to write down any ideas you have as soon as possible in your notes app on your phone, at work, or during something. Like if you're on the computer, send yourself an email. Something dumb. You can do whatever whenever you're doing it. And if it just, you see somebody playing a game and you like that mechanic of that game, like let's just say Pathfinder, and you see like, oh man, the combat system in Pathfinder is beautiful, which this is definitely a plug. Pathfinder second edition has really great combat. I really love it. And I take from it sometimes myself. But that's an idea that you can like jot down, be like, oh, I want to implement this from this system. Okay, I can go back to doing what I'm going to do, and then later come back to it, and it can shape how you want things to go. And of course, it'll help you down the road when you need it most. Like randomly, you'll forget about magic system, and then you're like, oh shit, this magic system from XYZ game I really love, and I've seen people rave about it. I really want to put it in my game. And of course, sometimes you'll get stuck on how you maybe possibly want to do like combat or magic or something of the same volition, right? Because we're just talking about writing down ideas. If you're just stuck on that same idea and it's just not hitting and you're not figuring it out and it's making you upset, just switch to an idea that you had earlier. Like, okay, hey, we had character sheets we got to go over. How should they function? Swap those ideas if you start to get frustrated or if it starts to become a chore instead of fun. Do not dwell on it at the beginning, because swapping ideas during the first phase is essential to keeping yourself from burnout. And it's such a common thing that most people don't realize they do before it's too late. And it causes a lot of sad outcomes for super amazing potential. So make sure that you like have double takes, you swap out tasks once in a while if you're stuck, and even just because if you're not testing yet, you're just throwing and cobbling together some jank shit, and then you can play and see how jank it is later. If it's really bothering you that much, just throw something together, cobble it together. We're not even in the playtest phase yet. We're just getting the ideas down, getting down what we might want to do with it, just writing down some things that we could possibly do with this idea. And we're writing about the theme, we're writing story out. Like if you're really into story and you really want to write some background stuff, write a story, right? Start writing that story out, anything to give you that little break from your frustrations in a game. Because everybody that I know that creates games always has something that they're just not the best at. And I will be honest, 100% honest, I myself love everything about TTRPGs, but I have such a hard time writing my story out for it. And it's mostly because I love playing them. So like I like playing the game and then like I forget to visualize the theme. And so like that really important bit gets kind of lost in a lot of stuff. But Antonio really pulls me out of that funk. And he's been my business partner for a long time. He's super awesome. And of course he's been my friend before then for 14 years almost. So me and him go back a long time, and so like we kind of know when we're in a funk or when we're going through something, and so it's easier for us to talk in and out, talk ourselves in and out of stuff. But if you're working on this alone, this is one of those things that I would recommend. Just like, hey, take a minute, relax, do what you can. You'll play it eventually, and when you play it, get some people together. You can always go on Reddit, D&D, LFG, or TTRPG, or anything like that. Find some people at your local game store and just play it. Make a one shot, do something, because more than likely, if you're watching this video, you've been a DM for a while, or if you're trying to be like, oh, I'm gonna make my own game and beat D&D, and you've never touched any system before and never made a TTRPG. I mean, good luck to you. I I only wish you the best, but my God, you are throwing yourself into a pit of flames that I could never imagine. But either way, whatever your experience level, whatever anything when you're trying to create a TTRPG, you just need to take breaks. And breaks doesn't necessarily mean putting a project down for weeks at a time. It can just be, like I said, swapping tasks. But that is number two, and that's really important here. Number three is be sure to visualize your theme and what do you want it to do. Like, is it fantasy? Is it horror? Is it sci-fi? All of the above? Oh my. Then make sure you just follow suit and try your best to make it feel as though it is the realm that you're trying to go for. Because themes go a long way in creation. If all of a sudden your sci-fi has magic and you lose all the sci-fi aspects because it's all happening on a dystopian Earth or something, and then it's like barely touches sci-fi, and then your original idea changes from sci-fi to something completely different, totally fine. That is totally okay, and that's up to you to do. And I don't want you to think that you can't do that. Now, however, as you're visualizing your theme and what you want it to be, it's really, really, really fucking important that you make sure you know where you want it to kind of go as you're developing it. Because if it starts to swap out or you start to have trouble visualizing it, it may be time to go back to the theme and say, like, what really am I trying to go for? Because if you can't visualize the theme, your players definitely can't either. And so when we get to that playtesting phase, it's going to be really hard to try and get people like hooked and getting them to playtest and be interested. And in the long run, it's going to save you a lot of time. And the third point, I almost argue, is the most important. Next to questions, I would say one, three, and then two, because that's just how important they are. But number three is just you just need to have your theme kind of locked down and then like develop it over time, make changes over time, but be sure that the changes are what you want. And if you need to, I say there's a secret fourth thing here. You can always scrap an idea if it's just not working. You spend a week on it and you're just not feeling this one. You're like, yeah, it just wasn't as going as much as it wasn't going as well as I thought it was. Just crumple it up, scrap it, and try again. Like, because I know I throw in a lot at you guys, but like, I promise there's a method to the mind-numbing madness that I have. Um, these points are things that you should actively think about while you're creating, and this goes for those that have never touched the system beyond D&D, and for those that branch out so much that it's basically impossible to know where you came from. But again, theme and purpose of the game is key. Why would you want to play a game over just any plain old D&D session? And don't get me wrong, my roots are in D&D, and I wouldn't be here without it. I love you, D&D, mwah, mwah, mwah. But I also have my quarrels with Wizard of the Coast, and personally switched to making my own systems in 2018 for just different reasons as well. And that may be your reason, and if so, just stick it out and keep going. Use the first step and then just build the theme and the purpose. What's different and what's the same? What genre is it? Where do you want it to go? But this is part one of the series, and honestly, I'm really just getting started. So if you guys want to see more, sub and follow me, and I'll see you guys later. And remember, DMs, stay dastardly.